Hey guys, welcome to another Jamaican video, a Jamaican living in Germany. Now in this video, it's a culture shock video and I want to talk about my experience in India. So it's all about the culture shocks in India from a Jamaican perspective. For the longest while I've wanted to visit this country because India has just always been at the top of my list as one of those really interesting places that you just have to visit. Just the magnitude of this country and just the population there, and the fact that it's like you're in one city and you drive a couple of kilometers to a different place and somehow you see so many differences and also at the same time similarities and so on. So it's like you have like so many different worlds in this country. I was super excited to visit India. And when I got there, I definitely wasn't disappointed because there were so many culture shocks. On my trip, I didn't get to see a lot of India because of course, this massive country. So I was just in New Delhi, Jaipur, Agra, and also Amritsar. So mostly in the northern areas.
The first thing I realized is that driving here is crazy.
I jumped into a taxi to head to the city center. And I didn't know what I was signing up for. In Jamaica, we have crazy taxi drivers. I mean, ask any Jamaican, they tell you that taxi drivers are the worst. In India, it was a different level because I was there in the front seat of this Uber and I felt like I was a driving instructor because the entire time I was just like pressing brakes with my legs. I'm like, no, please, undertaking, overtaking, left to right. It wasn't just him, it was just everybody. And I was like, what is this chaos right here? I love crazy driving, but even for me, that was a different level. As a pedestrian trying to cross the streets, that was the ultimate adventure. If you go to India, the only adventure that you need to do is just to try to cross one of these busy streets. Words can't describe that experience. I was a few days in Delhi and I think I only saw one accident. Based on how they drive on these roads and stuff, I was definitely expecting like accidents would be much more common. But again, somehow it works, somehow people find their way through it all. On this trip to the city center, it was also clear just how noisy the place was. I've been living in Germany for the longest while, and here it's not very typical for you to hear people just honking their horns. In India, it's like these people, it was just a melody through the entire city. I couldn't understand like just how noisy it was because they were just honking like at every step of the way. Sometimes I was wondering like, why are they honking? You can just imagine the combination of all this honking and then this crazy driving. I was like, whoa, this is a cool start to my trip in India. Something that reminded me of the good old Jamaican days was this negotiating with the taxi drivers or with the tuk-tuk drivers saying, okay, I need to go there, and then you had to like figure out how much it would cost. I just want to sit somewhere, there's a price that I need to pay and I get where I'm supposed to go. But I can definitely understand why it's so different in India because I mean, it's a massive place and like to get into some of these different places, then you can't have a set route and a set price. Back in Jamaica, we have loadermen. What they do is that if you go to the bus station, there are these guys and their job is just, they employ themselves really. Their job is to try to get passengers into the buses. And sometimes what they do is that if you have bags, they would just take your bags and just pretty much take it to the bus or to the taxi without your permission and stuff because yeah, why not?
These drivers here are persistent. It's like they're following you everywhere you go. Every step you make, hey, here's my taxi, here's my take my taxi.
What surprised me in India was just how persistent some of the taxi drivers there were and also the vendors. There was a taxi driver, he came to me and he was like, okay, do you need a taxi? I was like, no, I don't need a taxi. My hotel is just around the corner. This continued for another 10 minutes. Now, the hotel that I booked was like about 1 kilometer away from the train station, and I chose it especially because I didn't want to have to bargain any prices and stuff. And this guy followed me like for more than half of the way, asking me, do you need a taxi? Do you need a taxi? And the entire time I was saying, hey, I don't need a taxi. That was surprising for me because I've never really experienced that level of persistence before.
So time for an adventure, taking an Indian train.
Traveling with a train in India was the ultimate experience before boarding the train and even after getting off the train. Now, first of all, trying to get a ticket was much more complicated than I thought it would be. I thought I could just go online and I could just buy the ticket and print it out. And yeah, this was a couple of years ago. Maybe things have changed. Okay, so when I went online, I couldn't just buy the ticket. And so I asked at the hostel and they told me that, yeah, it doesn't work that way. You kind of have to find someone for them to book the ticket for you. He told me that, okay, I needed to go to like some shop on the street corner, and that's how, and this guy would book the ticket for me. Traveling on the train was an interesting experience. Interesting is not even the word for that experience. Inside the train was amazing because I love those experiences of kind of living the way that locals do. Along the track, there was always something to be amazed at. Whether it was just people like just actually literally defecating on the rails, you could see them, or even just driving by and you could actually see the poverty and the challenges that these people would have in the place that they were living. It was quite an eye-opening experience on that journey. It was also an opportunity to see the beauty of this country, just out in nature and seeing the hills and the valleys and stuff. It's an amazing country. I definitely have to admit that.
Completely dark here, so apparently they turn off the lights or the electricity in the day.
Now, finding a place to stay in a lot of these Indian cities, or at least the cities that I visited, was no problem. The surprising part was just how cheap it was. Now, I've stayed at many hostels across the world and none of them compared to the prices that I saw in some of these cities. One of the hostels that I stayed, I paid €1 per night. 1 single euro. And I think there was even breakfast included with this. That was like surprising for me that it's like so cheap. One single euro. Paying this amount of money, you would think, okay, this is just a crazy story waiting to happen. You can't expect much when you pay €1, but what I got was definitely more than what I was expecting. Let's put it that way.
I'm feeling much better than I was like earlier this morning, because this morning I was having like terrible pains. I couldn't even sleep, but now I'm doing much better. So yeah.
For the first couple of days in India, I was in New Delhi and I did couchsurfing there. Now, if you guys don't know what couchsurfing is, there are some other videos where I talk a bit about how this works and you can check that out. The guy that I stayed with in New Delhi was, trust me, one of the best hosts I've ever had before. When I got to New Delhi, I was actually sick. I think it was food poisoning or something. So for like the first 2-3 days, I was just lying in bed and stuff. And this guy, even though I was sick and I told him about it, he was like, yeah, you can still come, you can still stay. He didn't have to do all of this, but then he still put up with it and he was very helpful. When I started to get better, he was like, okay, now you definitely need to see a few things in India. I was just really thankful for the hospitality and for all the conversations that we have, the things that I learned about India from him and so on. It was just an amazing experience.
Bye guys.
When I was leaving New Delhi and planning to visit the other cities, on Couchsurfing I made a post so that people in these areas could actually see that, and most times most people don't respond to it. But in India, like, I got so many responses of people offering to host me in their homes, or people just saying, okay, let's hang out, or people saying, hey, let's take a drive to this place and to that place. I was like so surprised that just the hospitality and just how willing people were, and like just the curiosity that they have towards foreigners and how helpful and how ready they are. I mean, that was really surprising for me, and it was just amazing.
Hi.
And of course, the typical situation of being stared at by some of the kids. They're just looking at me like, okay, who's this foreigner guy? And people want to take a picture with me. Maybe I was the first black guy that they saw, which shouldn't be that hard for them in India, because of course there were people there with my complexion and so on. But I mean, of course, the hair, okay, yeah.
Just drove this thing. It was like a crazy experience.
I can assure you this is just gonna be the first video I will do about India, because the list of culture shocks that I have to share is very long. So this is just number one. I'm sure I'm gonna do maybe 1 or 2 other videos, so you can look out for those.
Me and OJ, Omar,
That was kind of my experience as a Jamaican living in Germany, visiting India. And yeah, have you guys been to India before? What are some of the experiences that you have? Or if you live in India, I would love to have some answers to some of the questions and just explain to me some of these cultural things, because I would definitely appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and see you in the next Jamaican video.